Section 7 of Told in the Gardens of Araby by Izora C. Chandler and Mary W. Montgomery. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Doug Wade. Story of the Water Carrier. The tellers of stories and narrators of tales say that, once upon a time, there was a king who had only one child, and that a daughter. Now it happened that the king's vizier, whose house was directly opposite this palace, was likewise circumstanced with regard to his family. And, moreover, the two young ladies had each a room in the very front of her dwelling, and each was very beautiful. One day the two were sitting at their respective windows, furtively regarding each other across the street, when a tall and handsome water carrier chanced to pass. Seeing him thus, the king's daughter spoke. "O water boy, which is the more beautiful, the vizier's daughter or I?" The water carrier gazed upon each in turn, then answered, "My princess, both of you are very beautiful, but since one must not lie to the child of his king, the vizier's daughter is the more so." This testimony so wrought upon the jealous princess that she became ill in consequence, and was unable to rise from her bed. The king was greatly disturbed at this. He summoned the court physician and the other learned men, who came to discover what was her ailment and to cure her, if possible. The princess gave gold pieces to these men, and ordered them to tell her father that this illness would prove fatal, unless the vizier's daughter were killed and some of her blood given as a medicine. The physician was a weak man, and afraid to anger the daughter of his king. He went to her father with the cruel request. Immediately a command was sent to the vizier, but that fond and daring father killed a little kitten and sent its blood instead. Then, becoming afraid, he summoned a carpenter and had a walnut box made and beautifully fitted up inside, into which he put his daughter, and then ordered his faithful servant to take it to the market and sell it, regardless of the price. Placing himself in the window, the anxious father waited to note the disposal of the box with its precious contents. He had not waited long when the water carrier, whose truthfulness had caused all the mischief, came by and stopped to look at the walnut box. "Here is a handsome fellow, whose heart will surely be touched into pity and love at the sight of my daughter," thought the vizier, so he made a sign to the servant, who asked the young man if he would not like the box. "Surely I would like it," was the response, "but the wood is valuable and the parts are well joined. The price will be high." "Indeed no," answered the servant. "I am worn with waiting, and must be off at once. Give me 5 paras, and the box is yours." The water carrier smiled. "Aha! I see the price is not to you. I will give you 3. Take it and hasten, for I am needed already, at a great distance." The purchaser gave him the money, called a porter, and ordered him to bring the box along with him to his house. Offering a prayer to Allah for the safety of his child, the vizier, followed by his servant, hastened away, while the porter strapped the box upon his back and then followed the water carrier, until, in obedience to his direction, he placed it in the young man's room, where it remained that night. After the young man had gone out the next day to follow his avocation, the vizier's daughter unlocked the box from within, opened it, stepped out, and looked about her. The whole house was in disorder. She was a girl of very tidy habits, and decided to make the bed, sweep, and put it rights the whole place generally. This she did, and, when the time was approached for the return of her young owner, lay down again in her box and locked it from within. Imagine the surprise of the waterman when he returned in the evening and found everything in delightful order. "I wonder who has been here," he thought. Then, being very tired with long walking, he went to bed and slept soundly all night. Morning came. "I must get a locksmith to open this walnut box for me," he said, then went out upon his daily round. No sooner had he gone than the maiden unlocked the casket, arose, and did on the day preceding. At evening she lay down in the walnut box as before. The young man entered, saw everything in beautiful order, and stood for some time thinking. Then he went to the box and tried the lock. It would not yield. "If any one is within, let him come forth," commanded the waterman. But though he waited long, no sound was heard in answer. He then went to bed and slept peacefully until morning, when he arose earlier than usual. This caused the heart of the girl in the walnut box to tremble. However, she remained quiet, and soon found that wisdom had impelled her silence, for the young man returned very shortly with a fine piece of meat which he had gone to the butcher's to buy. Laying it down upon a table, he said, "If Allah approve, I will cook this tomorrow." Then he took up his water-skins and went out for the day. The maiden no longer feared discovery. She arose, swept the house as the other days, cooked the meat, carefully covered it, and laid it away. Then, seeing many pieces of soiled clothing about, she said, "It is better to wash clothes than to be killed at the caprice of a princess," and began busying herself in that way when, most unexpectedly, the master of the house entered. At the sight of him, the poor girl covered her face and cried, "Alas! Alas!" But the waterman recognized her and was filled with joy. He asked how her condition had become so changed, and, after hearing her story, went nearer to her and said, "Ay, my princess, you are mine, but I also am yours. Let us be married." The young woman gave her consent. A few of the neighbors were summoned hastily, and, with due ceremony, they were married and lived very happily until, both of them fearing discovery, the husband loaded 40 donkeys with merchandise, placed his wife upon another, and sent her to the home of his mother, with whom the young woman lived for some time. However, it is a true saying that the beauty which causes envy in the hearts of others seldom brings happiness to its possessor. Some of the women of the place became jealous of the newcomer and wrote a letter to the husband, telling him that his wife had forgotten him and was in love with another. This so incensed the young husband that he sent out word that he was coming home, bought a dagger, and set out to kill his wife. As he approached the house, he saw her coming to meet him, with silver candlesticks in her hands. But when she saw that his face was dark and threatening, that he was drawing a dagger from his belt, she ran to the bank of a stream which flowed in front of the house, sprang into it, and was carried away toward the sea. "Let her go," cried all the neighbors, who had come out to watch the affair. "She is not worthy of a good home nor of a kind husband." Now, farther down, there were fishermen upon the banks of the stream. As the drowning girl was swept along by the current, the nets caught her, and the fishermen, feeling something heavy in the nets, made haste to draw them in. Their surprise upon finding a girl, instead of a heavy draught of fishes, was very great. They hastened to work over her until she had come to life, when, because she was very beautiful, they began to quarrel as to whom she belonged. Finally, as they were coming to blows, one of them said, "Let me throw this arrow. Then let all of us run after it. Whichever finds it first shall have the prize." Accordingly, he threw the arrow, and all of them started off. While they were engaged in seeking it, the girl caught the opportunity to run away. And, as the one who threw the arrow was very strong of arm, they were so long in finding it that she had accomplished a goodly distance before they discovered their loss. The poor girl ran and ran until she met a Jew, who laid rough hands upon her and said, "Ay, my girl, as you seem to belong to no one, I am going to take you. You shall not be let to run wild in this manner. Henceforth you are mine." Then the despairing girl held up the 2 silver candlesticks, which had been in her hands all the time, and while he was securing them in his pack, she ran again, until she came to a fountain, where she sat down exhausted. While she was sitting thus, the son of the king of that country came by, and, seeing her, sat down and talked with her. Notwithstanding her weariness and all through which she had passed, her attractiveness was so great that, after he had been beside the fountain but a little while, he asked if she would accompany him to the palace and become his bride. To this she made answer, "Most gladly will I do this that you ask, O most noble prince, if first you will grant a request of mine." "It is granted already, my princess. Now tell it me." "Since it is beside this fountain, and because of it, that I may have been found by you, may I ask that an agreeable place may be built here in which travelers may drink of the water and rest a little? And since you seem pleased to look at me, will you have my portrait put in the bottom of the basin, so that all who lean over to drink in the fountain may see it?" "All this will I have done at once, my princess," answered the prince. He then took her by the hand, and together they went to the palace. The fountain was builded as described, and, not far away, a tiny tower was put up from which the prince and the young woman whom he had found could see all those who came to drink of the beautiful fountain. Now it very soon happened that the fishermen, passing that way, stopped to drink of the water which flowed clear and bright, and they leaned over the marble basin, and they saw the girl's image, and each fell to the ground in a faint. While they were lying thus, the Jew approached, and in stooping to drink, he too lost his senses and fell down beside the others. Last of all came the water carrier, and no one needs wonder what consciousness left him upon the instant. Now, the one whose portrait had so distressed them all, the evil each had done her being so upon his conscience that he felt the image had come to wreak vengeance, was watching from the window of the little tower. "My prince," said she gently, "will you graciously come and look toward the fountain?" Upon seeing the fallen bodies of the men, he turned to her, saying, "There is some mystery here. These men have wronged you in some way." And without waiting for an answer, he commanded that they all be put in irons. When they had recovered consciousness and were safely lodged in prison, the prince and the young woman went in to look at them. "O prince, gracious and kind," said she, "these fishermen drew me out of the water, and, while they quarreled over me, I made my escape. This Jew met me in my flight, treated me roughly, and would have made me his slave, but, while he was dazzled with the silver candlesticks in my hand, I fled again. This water carrier was my husband. Without granting me the privilege of proving myself innocent, he believed evil reports which jealous persons related to him, and came prepared to kill me. It was because of this that I tried to drown myself." "Is all this possible?" exclaimed the astonished prince. "Then the Jew and the fisherman shall be punished with 40 stripes and 40 days' imprisonment. As for the water carrier, do you decide what will be done with him. In this matter your word will be my law." Thereupon the water carrier fell down at the woman's feet and kissed the hem of her raiment. "Kill me, O my beloved," he cried, "for indeed I am only worthy of death. But first grant thy forgiveness. It was the madness of my love which drove me to kill thee, when those evil tidings came. I had been diligent in business, praying Allah to grant me success, so that I might build a fitting home for thee and me, and my efforts were crowned with the answer to my prayer. At the very time when the tidings came, I was about to come to thee with the precious news, and therefore was more easily incensed. But I ask not for mercy, O my beloved. Do as thou willst with me. It will be just. Then, if the prince will be gracious still, and I return unto thee, wilt thou henceforth learn the truth before thou sharpenest thy dagger? Canst thou believe me, O my wife? 1,000 times, yes. Then the prince, whose eyes were full, gave the woman to her husband. They returned home, were married all over again. The wedding was celebrated for 40 days and 40 nights, after which they lived long and happily. Salam. End of section 7.